Hi everyone, my name is Olivia and I am Law and Ethics Co-Manager at Deep Neural. And today I'm joined with Francesco, our Law and Ethics Framework and Consultation Secretary, as well as Yanis and Campbell Wilson from AiLECS. So might start us off with you, Campbell, just introducing yourself and a little bit about your role at AiLECS.
Sure. Thanks for having us. My name's Campbell Wilson. I'm with the Department of Data Science and AI in the Faculty of IT, and I'm the co-director of the AiLECS lab. So what that means is that we have a joint leadership in the lab. I'm the Monash leadership. Yanis is co-director on the AFP side.
And hi, I'm Yanis. As Campbell said, I'm the AFP's co-director of AiLECS.
Beautiful. Now, I just want to go in, what is AiLECS? What do you guys do on a day-to-day? What is your goals? What are your missions?
So AiLECS, first of all, it stands for AI for Law Enforcement and Community Safety. We're a joint collaboration between Monash and the Australian Federal Police. Been running formally for about 6 years now, but actually the work that led to the formation of the lab went on a little bit before that, actually, with Yanis's PhD. Essentially, our mission is to develop tools, techniques powered by AI and machine learning that can help law enforcement and broader problems of community safety in general.
And what sparked the starting of AiLECS? Obviously, with Yanis's PhD, but then becoming more affiliated with the university and the AP directly.
I think we realised we had a couple of mission-specific requirements and things we wanted to do, but we realised there was a gap where there's lots of research out there and tons of papers on anything to do with law enforcement. You'll find it if you look for it. The problem is a lot of them are written in isolation and there isn't really that view to, okay, here's this great idea. How do I actually operationalise it? How do I make it work? And that was why the AFP side went, well, the only way we're going to do this is an integrated approach. We've got to be there, they've got to be here, and we can actually figure out, well, that's interesting to you, that's not really going to work for us, and vice versa. We really want to do this, but academia might say, well, actually that's been done just under a different name.
Yes.
And there's a lot of that.
Okay. Well, I think we'll move on to the actual specifics of AiLECS projects and what projects you've been doing in the past years, specifically in 2024. If you could just give us some insight into what you've been doing.
Sure. So we've got a lot of things on our plate at the moment. I guess our foundation project and our flagship project, for want of a better phrase, is the use of AI and machine learning to counter child exploitation. As you and your audience will be aware, this is a huge and growing problem. And in fact, when Yanis started his PhD, that was the area that he was working in the AFP, in digital forensics. And we were sort of applying ourselves to the problem of developing triage tools powered by AI to help sift through some of that material more quickly, not to replace police, but just to give them another tool to prioritise their investigations. So that work continues apace. We've been doing that for many years, and there's a lot of dimensions to that. More recently in that space, we're very interested in the impact of generative AI and these text-to-image generation algorithms that are widely available. There's a very low barrier to entry, and it's unfortunately the case that people with very bad intent are using those to create, for instance, child abuse material. So the issue with that is that obviously that in and of itself is a criminal act to create in Australia to create generated child abuse material. But what's another very concerning dimension there is that victim ID teams in police forces, when they come across material, if in the future increasingly they're unaware whether or not that material is generated by an algorithm or is a real photograph of a child being abused, their resource prioritization may be skewed. They may be essentially chasing down leads for children that may not exist. So this huge, drive towards developing algorithms that can detect whether or not an image is generated by these algorithms. So we put a lot of effort into that recently as well. Maybe Giannis can talk a little bit more about some of the other projects, such as the network analysis.
So we do some work in, well, called network analysis. And I realise this is more of a law podcast, so a bit off topic, but the idea of, okay, you've got a whole, gosh, I realise I'm overcomplicating it now already. With organised crime or anything like that, you typically have networks of operations because if you're organised, you've got to communicate. Simple as that. So the idea is, well, maybe I can't see exactly what you're discussing, but maybe I can use those patterns of behaviour to get a better idea of, well, that's probably the boss. Yeah. Maybe that's the linchpin. There's often a difference there. There's the person who might be in charge, then there's the person who actually enables the comms and enables things to happen. Yeah. Well, which one would you prefer to, operate on first? Maybe do you want to disrupt or do you want to take the whole thing down? And look, I should say first and foremost, we're not here to tell cops what to do. We're here to go, well, here's a tool that might help you do this. Yeah. Go nuts. Something less technical, but I think from the police's perspective, I think still quite critical. We still work a lot in the ethics and governance space because everyone talks AI, but when you look at all the controversies that have come along, everything like that, the actual AI part, the algorithm, the math, whatever you want to describe it as, is rarely the issue. Yep. It's been the data, the way it's collected, it's been how it's been stored, it's been how it's been implemented, what's been the right of reply for someone affected by it. Do people even know what the heck it is and where it's happening? And that's the stuff that we're really quite passionate about, getting the message around that, well, okay, police are using data science, not just AI, but these are the rules we have to follow. These are the rules we should follow to make sure that we reduce the chances of stuffing up. Let's just keep it that way. And I think that's the one that, to be honest, when the lab first started, that was always you should do this. Yeah. But you realise that's become far more important because if we screw up the governance and the implementation, the rest of it doesn't matter because you just won't be able to use it. Yeah.
And just to build on that, if I could, so exactly as well as the image classification, the audio classification, the technical side of things, that ethics piece is really important. And also in the child protection space, we've got a project that's specifically asking victims and survivors what they think of the use of their material in the development of tech. Right. So we feel that part of the ethics and transparency piece here is understanding how people deeply involved in this, the victims and survivors themselves, what's their perception on how this material is used by laboratories like ours, by industry to develop tools to counter this crime. How is this material used in the judiciary, by police, etc.? So we really take, I guess, quite a broad view of our remit in this space, and it's not just, as Giannis said, about the technology per se.
That's really interesting. And you raised also the use of AI in the judiciary. You were involved in an AI trial and the use of AI in evidence in 2024. Would you both be able to touch on a little bit about how that played out and the implications you think in the future that AI may be used in the judiciary?
Yeah, so that was wasn't a real trial. It was a mock trial, and the scenario was that AI had been used to generate some of the evidence in the case. So I think we were using, in the case, an audio transcription tool powered by AI. Perhaps you want to talk about the scenario and then I'll talk about how it went.
The scenario was designed to basically be from a forensic perspective, a bloody nightmare. So the idea was, in our hypothetical scenario, we had someone conduct an attack on a community centre, and they were killed in the process. Post-event, someone looking through the backpack found explosive materials, a knife, and a mobile phone. The mobile phone was using all the, there was evidence of communications with a third party, a known online, extremist. And there was proof of calls up to the moment of it happening. But unbeknownst to the person operating the phone, because they had captioning turned on their app, under the hood, this secure app that didn't keep anything, used an automated transcription service called sottovoce. So the design was that in that phone, we had traces of this captioning left on the phone. So literally saying, honestly, I wrote this thing, I should remember it, but it was something along the lines of, hey, should I do this? yeah, do it, and end of comms. But the point there was, one, sotto voce is an app hosted offshore.
Yeah.
We don't have access to the code. We can't experiment with it. We do. The person whose voice is being transcribed is deceased, so we couldn't ask them to provide a sample to prove or disprove the accuracy. So therefore, now what? Is the question.
Yeah. So with that scenario in mind, AiLECS worked with the Faculty of Law here at Monash and put on this mock trial in this wonderful moot court space. I was the expert witness in the mock trial. We had an actual serving judge. We had actual barristers involved, and it was obviously a very abbreviated trial task, but I was essentially grilled about my my knowledge of how the algorithm in the case worked, and the particular scenario in which it was being presented as evidence in the court. And I understand the algorithm. I completely understand the algorithm and how it works. But what was very interesting to me was the experience of being an expert witness and understanding that the job of the defence is simply to introduce reasonable doubt. The defence did an excellent job of phrasing questions to which there is only really a yes or no answer, and there are lots of cases where AI will fail, and if you just sort of target in on those and put in the minds of the jury the fallibility of the system under certain circumstances, that was well and truly exposed, I think. And what it brought home to me was the fact that it was more the issue around the prosecution not potentially being able to make a case for the technology and to understand how it works and how it can assist. And that sort of, I think, and we had a bit of a panel discussion afterwards as well, where this was brought out, really exposed the issue of, I guess, AI literacy more broadly, in particular within the judiciary, but not just in the judiciary. I think just in the public in general. I mean, juries drawn from the public. So that was, to me, a very, very illuminating process.
So just for clarity, Sotto Voce was an AI system which was designed offshore for closed captioning.
Yes.
And the question was how reliable were those captions, which then you could rely on to
essentially, yes,
the perpetrator and potentially online extremist.
Yes. Yep. We should say Sotto Voce is a made-up name of a made-up system.
Total coincidence. But the idea being it's an online thing, so you couldn't download the model and tear it apart.
Yes.
That was the main one. And the hypothetical company in this case just wasn't responding to any requests in the court. And there was no power for them to be compelled.
Yes. And having said that's a fictional scenario that is not too far from the truth in many actual situations.
I should say every element of that story individually, I've personally encountered in the forensic area, and it was just a matter of, well, what's the worst possible combination to really make your day bad, and yet make the evidence important enough that the court would at least consider whether it's in the public interest to look at it.
Sure. Well, I think that goes to questions of trust and AI's accountability. And I think we really wanted to hone in on that, either using this trial experience or just your knowledge more generally. What do you think is needed in society for there to be more trust in AI systems, or how can we create AI systems which can be held more accountable, either from a governmental standpoint to impose regulations domestically, or something internationally to hold AI to some sort of accountability to make people trusted more in the law, outside of the law?
I'll start perhaps. I think, first of all, it very much depends on the use case, where it's being used, how it's being used. But I think this question of trust is a huge one, and very much it's a matter of developers being transparent around how the AI was trained, how it works, how the results are presented to those that ultimately make the decisions, how those results are visualized, making results interpretable, more generally interpretable to people. I mean, it's not particularly helpful for people to rely perhaps just on a number that comes out of an AI algorithm. Perhaps there needs to be a lot more context than that. But there's many different use cases we could dig into. But I think one of the core issues that I think about when I think about AI and the law is that AI is a disembodied statistical algorithm. We are embodied societal organisms. The law, I think, is always applied, as I understand, I'm not a lawyer, you guys are experts, is applied in a context, in a societal context. And I can see lots of use cases of AI in the legal system where it would be relatively easy to explain how it is being used and how it is helping, for instance, in discovery or sifting through documents, etc. But when it comes to exercising it in situations where there is more sort of import of the use more generally, I think people need to understand its limitations and the fact that it maybe is not congruent with the way that we would want the law to be implemented. We would want human beings to be involved in judging other human beings, and that's getting into a larger sort of issue. But yeah, I think transparency is probably the biggest thing in terms of trust.
Thank you, Dad.
Yeah, pretty much similar vein, because we always talk about explainable AI, and lately understandable is probably the better term, because you can get a mathematician in or a physicist to explain a convolutional neural network, and the other physicists in the room will all nod their heads and go, I get it. And I'll be sitting there going, I have no idea what you're talking about. I just know it's a big jumble of numbers and something comes out, and if I get it right, usually it's right. But I'm using, Google to pick the fastest route to work here in the morning, and it routes me around the traffic, and sometimes it gets it wrong. No big deal. Yeah. But because it shows me on the map the path it's taking, it thinks there's traffic there. That's why it's taking me, to Forest Hill for no apparent reason. Fine. But when you look at the idea of using this for more important stuff, I guess, one, the transparency of why are we using AI for whatever. But the big one for me is, for any member of the community, who's looking out for me? So if this is I'm a police officer and public servant, but I can say there's been instances we look at, it's not AI, but just systems that have been used to spit out results with no explainability and no recourse for appeal, and the damage that does. So for me, it's people understanding, we use this tool for whatever, number plate recognition when you drive onto campus here. You get a parking fine. You've got a right to appeal it and go, well, show me the photo, I reckon you got it wrong. It's a small example, but I've got a right to say, I reckon the AI got it wrong. You think of it that way, then people are a lot more comfortable because they know, everything gets it wrong every now and then, but I know that it's not just going to be thrown at me and that's it. Because that is where the unfairness kicks in. And from a law enforcement perspective, if the community thinks we're not being fair and reasonable, then we're done. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And Dennis, you mentioned there's a whole range of uses, obviously, from Google Maps to using it in a lot more, higher significant areas. In terms of the use of AI, still within the judiciary, but potentially more so in the use of AI judging emotions, like you mentioned, maybe, Campbell, you could touch on, the implications of using AI in such high significance and high pressure environments. For example, AI and use as judges, obviously there's the whole difficulties of AI judging emotions like remorse, which are very human emotions. How would you say the role is going to play for AI with the use of humans, and how that they will coexist together in the future?
Yeah, wow. Big
question.
Well, sure. So AIs do not have emotions. The best they can do is to mimic,
Yeah.
and to appear empathetic. There are some people like that, but in general, AI emotions, in some sense, are irrational. AI is completely rational. The decisions people make and the decisions people make in their lives that may end up with them being in a court are often irrational decisions, and judges, I would imagine, and juries have to understand the full context of what has happened in a particular case. I don't think AI is set up particularly well with the way it's currently, if we're talking about large language model type AI, which is essentially, large-scale statistical modelling of the relationships between tokens in text and understanding images, yes, and what similar. So I don't think this modality is something that, certainly not something I would trust up on the bench, and I don't think the community would in general. And I go back to that point about not just the fact that I don't think it can do that emotional empathy piece. I don't think we would ever necessarily want it, because I think that being judged by a jury of your peers and a judge that is a human being is a fundamental part of the legal system. Having said that, there are some, advantages you could conceive of having AI involved, which would be that any bias a particular judge has, based on their personal history and personal views, would presumably be eliminated if your AI was taking the wide statistical view of all possible case law and all. So I guess there are some advantages there. Another thing I would be concerned about with AI and judgments is that AI, as it's currently conceived, essentially is ingesting large amounts of data which goes back a certain period of time, and the law needs to be very contemporary. And one of the problems with machine learning is that it's actually hard to get it to forget in some of these large models. So I could see that, yes, individual judges' biases might be eliminated, but a machine learning algorithm may have baked into it a whole lot of stuff that it may not be relevant, and it may be something you wouldn't want to bring into a contemporary case in that particular situation at that particular time.
I guess that's a problem with AI generally, though, in terms of that idea of when you're training it on a data set, there are likely going to be biases because it's trained on a biased data set, unless you go through and meticulously look at what is being included or try to counter bias.
I think to have a completely unbiased data set, you'd probably have to engineer it.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going to train on the internet, you're taking all the biases that, I mean, the internet is generated by human beings with all their foibles.
Exactly.
So you'd need to engineer that out with interventions.
I guess, Yanis, I'm sure working with the police is an aspect of human behaviour that you're very familiar with. Would you say that, having human judges and human juries, can provide a level of public catharsis, and knowing that it is your peers judging you, rather than an AI model or a machine, in that sense?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I sort of sat there and went, I've got to explain all that. And I thought it'd be more fun to try to argue against that. And I cannot think of a single thing. So, that's the whole thing. It's a stressful situation. You're being put in front of or effectively in public, being accused of something. Any additional unfamiliarity or discomfort is going to play quite heavily on that person. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have that human element.
Yeah.
And ultimately the judge is the person who's there to make sure that everything is done correctly. They're the ones who basically made the call that something's out of whack here, we've got to stop. And would you trust an algorithm to do that, where, let's be honest, screw-ups tend to be, how to put it, you get your classic screw-up you should have seen coming from a mile off, and then you get the one that hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
And AI probably won't detect the latter.
Yeah.
I think the scenarios where I've seen countries that are further down the track with this they're conceiving AI judgments at very low level offences for a start. I mean, it wouldn't be a murder. It would be a jaywalking offence or something like this. And in those cases, rather than tying up court's times, every single person who wants to take something to court, and I need to check this, but from my memory, these approaches offer a judgment based on statistical analysis. Again, everyone has the right to take it to court if they want to, but many times they may accept the AI, or I say AI, but I think it's really just a fairly simple statistical model. That's another issue. A lot of the time, these things are not necessarily, and most AI, I think all AI is not intelligent, by the way. But yeah, so I think low-level offences, but people still have a recourse. That's the key. If they disagree with a judgment spat out of a machine, but don't spit something out of a machine for high-level offences.
Because I think, if I remember correctly, a lot of those were also, how to put it, the offence elements were easily quantifiable. So, low-level speeding, you were 5 k's over the speed limit, non-school zone, daylight, not raining, something along those lines, no traffic. Like tick, 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 tick. There's this statistical thing, but you look at most other crime, you can't just sort of go, oh, that's a 5 out of 10, or that's a foot. You can't do it.
Yeah, no, we call it in the law of the mens rea, the reason why, I don't think AI can judge human reasoning, because like you said earlier, a lot of the time human reasoning isn't logical, and there are other factors weighing in, like emotions or pressure, that a jury may find reduces your culpability, but an AI just completely doesn't care about.
Yeah, but it could mimic it well. You could just put in a whole lot of cases and judgments, and it could sort of spit something out that looks like it could have come from those sorts of cases and juries.
Exactly.
But would you?
Well, I think at that point, though, you've got to think about if you're on trial and an AI says, oh, you're guilty, well, then immediately just going to look for an appeal, right? And then if you remove the appeal process, then do you have a democracy in his empire?
We need to decide what our society looks like.
Exactly. I think that's a societal change. I think in terms of, you mentioned the other jurisdictions in terms of where they are with AI and how they're using it just in the judiciary. And I might open up to the judiciary and law enforcement. How do you think Australia fares in that space? Do you think we are competitive with some of the other countries out there? Or do you think we're lacking? There's still a long way to go? Do you think everyone's lacking equally?
Mike, let you.
In the law enforcement context, we certainly aren't at the cutting edge of what we're seeing everywhere else right now, which is a very good thing, in my opinion, because, cliche here, cutting edge, bleeding edge, well, consequences of us getting it wrong are far worse than, Google Maps taking you an extra 5 minutes on your way to work. You get over that pretty quick. The big challenge is here again, and this is something I rabbit on about a lot, is it's not the AI. The AI algos, they break through every couple of days. There's DeepSeek, whatever keeps popping up. It's everything else around it. It's the systems. Can I show that I'm using data in a compliant fashion with the law? Now, where I work in digital surveillance collection, part of our remit is actually telecommunications intercepts, which are very heavily regulated, and we have a very, very strong audit and accountability area, and literally does that. Now, we need to get our tech to that point where if we were ever going to use that data for that sort of training purpose or whatever, and I say if because we're not, that we can show that, we used it for this purpose, the outputs were here, here, and here, and when the order came to destroy, it's gone. That's the key, and that's the part that, frankly, we all know we've been trying to get there for years, but it's a bloody big task. But the alternative is we skip that task and go straight to the tech. Well, that's running a hell of a lot of risk, if not a guarantee of screw-ups. So that's why I say, we're behind, but in a good way.
Yeah, I would agree with that more broadly in the AI innovation ecosystem in Australia. I think absolutely more money could be poured in that would support more innovation. But what we don't want is to just build another, just to echo what Yana said, another move fast and break things, little Silicon Valley in Australia. We have plenty of that going on around the world. I think Australia has an opportunity to really be strong in the responsible AI space. Europe has gone down the regulation path, and as you know, the AI Act is in force. I think Australia can tread a bit of a middle ground where we innovate, but we do it responsibly. We move fast, but I think those safety guardrails. I mean, we have a very active e-safety commission in Australia. So we do a little bit of work with them, and of course we're very familiar with the child protection space. But I think just more broadly, innovation, but responsible innovation is where Australia should be.
It's with a CI/CD pipeline, big automated deployment pipeline, through to where I work at the AFP. So we build a tool, you can go across there in a couple of minutes, be readily deployed, because we have a whole architecture designed. But we won't, because we'll do an ethics assessment, we'll do a privacy impact assessment, we'll do a risk assessment. So the tech part, deployment minutes, that stuff weeks if not months, and ultimately the person responsible who is empowered to own that system signs off on it. So not only do you have someone sign off on it, you have the person who actually owns it, who actually is responsible, sign off on it. So again, it's just the tech is the easy part. It's the, how to put it, being grown-ups about it is the hard element.
Yeah.
Well, we need to show anytime we get asked, to whether it's Parliament, whether it's court, because law enforcement, everything we do is open to judgment. It's an open question. So if we fall down any of those parts, the rest of it does not matter.
Yeah.
And frankly, if someone, how to put it, it's easy for me to say, we screwed up 1 times out of 100. Or about the person affected of that 1 times out of 100. I've got a very different perspective on that than the dev.
I mean, I think law enforcement is, as you say, very tightly regulated, and that there are guardrails, if you want to use that term, inherently in place in any case. I think the issue is the rest of the ecosystem. You know, for instance, those people who are building so-called emotion recognition technology that can, put a camera in a store and it will tell you if your customers are happy or not. This sort of rubbish, or people building AI chatbots to be companions for, this sort of thing. And like I said before with the generative AI, the low barrier to entry means that the tools are out there for people to do all sorts of things, and there's not very much control over that. There is once they distribute material online that is illegal, of course, there are laws. But I think some sort of guardrails and perhaps education of society more general to push back a bit about some of this development is important as well.
I think we would completely agree on that front too. Having done study and research more than just your average person on the street would, if you start to see, there's real world impacts, and these machines having such emotional impacts on people, which I think a lot of people who enjoy using the ChatGPT, they help them write an email, and might get the unaware of. So it's nice to hear that at least the Australian AI sector is taking that more cautious approach.
And a lot of it's personal decisions. If you want to have a chatbot that's slightly more stupid than you, that makes mistakes every now and again, and you get it to write your stuff, I mean that's your decision. But I think that's a slippery slope. I think people are ultimately going to lose a bit of cognitive capacity if we give away the most human of character traits, including writing.
Yes.
I mean, you get this prosaic sort of stuff out of ChatGPT and stuff because it's just a statistical guess. I know.
No, that's sorry, I'm just frantic. No, not at all. That's exactly what we're here for. I mean, it's a very large topic, which, like you said, it's only at the cutting edge, it's at the forefront, and it's not in everyone's purview. And so when there is an open chance to discuss it, we think at least it's really important to delve into some of those issues that do affect everyone, even if they don't realize it. I think hearing about the AFP pipeline and the fact that it uses so many checks and balances, again, goes back to what we were talking about earlier about public confidence and trust and accountability, especially when people can naturally distrust others who are in a position of power, and knowing that there is such strong regulation and thought about implementing these technologies, especially when you hear about other jurisdictions. The most obvious one is America, for example. You do hear some stories out of there. You think of Cambridge Analytica as well. People know about that. Just these stories about privacy being broken and real life consequences happening. It's really thoughtful, of the Australian AI technology space to be implementing that technologies in such a way that considers that human impact and isn't just focusing on being the first ones there, and not necessarily having that commercial thought as well. If we're the first ones to break into this, we'll make the most money out of it, which you also see internationally as well. And from a Monash Deep Neuron perspective, being in the Law and Ethics Committee, that's all we do. Before, the engineers were really eager to get out their projects that they've been working weeks on, just pushed out as quickly as possible. Naturally getting just swept up in the excitement of creating a new machine. We're here to just put the brakes on for a little bit and just make sure that, actually, if you think about it, like maybe there's something that you can tighten up here just to avoid potential disaster. So,
and we get it because we're nerds. I mean, we love the cool stuff.
It's just exactly that. Your definition of cool might differ to ours. Yeah, I know it's our definition of cool is that we equally think it's all very cool. But the potential consequences, that's not very cool.
Yeah. So, no, it's something I'd realised, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I want to emphasise that, we're talking about the emotion detectors and things like that. The AFP, well, I can't speak for all law enforcement internationally, but the AFP, for example, where I work, we would never lead evidence based on AI. So everything we use is what we call triage. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's like, hey, you should check this out. Yeah. That's not to say don't check everything else out, but maybe look at this one first. This one might be urgent. That's the extent to which we use it. Because the classic one, and even, hey, ChatGPT, write my routine statement for me. Let's ignore the information security issues here. Let's just assume it's been approved. That's going to be the time where it just suddenly describes you as being interstate at that. Something stupid and embarrassing will turn up. Yeah. And hey, if you want to take that risk, that's fine, but it's just off camera here. There's that stand that you'd be sitting in with the judge looking at you, and you want to get torn a fresh one. You don't want to do that.
Definitely. Well, there's so many areas and obviously implications. We could talk for hours, but I guess to wrap up and to kind of hear, looking towards the future, obviously, Francesco discussed that we're really excited at Law and Ethics for the potential and innovation. But like you said, Yanis, the hard part is the tech. The easy part is the tech part. The hard part is obviously implementing and the checks and balances with that. We've also discussed earlier the fact that the technology does exist. And so the use of technologies like Clearview technology in the law enforcement space does exist. But what do you think is the next steps in terms of how we find that balance between the technology and obviously pushing for innovation, but also finding that balance of obviously ethics and pushing for ethical checks and balances in that instance?
I would say pulling back the lens, and this is something that's already in train, so I'll just simply comment, the move to regulation around, it's not just AI. Again, anything where you feed data in and you get an answer out, same thing. Regulatory certainty, and then we can start to build around that. Right. And that's already in chains. That's not a political comment or anything like that. That's just literally wherever that lands. But I'll actually make a comment here. I found it quite interesting. We were at a conference about 4 or 5 months ago full of online child protection specialists. And, they're traditionally seen as the gung-ho, just give me the tools, I want to do this, da-da-da. And the big message out of that conference is actually, we're looking forward to regulatory certainty, because then we know what we're playing, what the field is, and then we can align ourselves to it, and we can show that we're doing the right thing. And that showed a sign of, I don't know how I put it, organisational maturity to technology that perhaps people don't appreciate is already there.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think that really hits the nail on the head. Regulatory certainty in the context of modernisation of, law is always having a difficult time keeping up with technology, but in this case, AI is moving so fast, and I think modernisation of privacy regulations, the law in general to understand legislative some of these use cases, I think is absolutely crucial. And yeah, regulatory certainty, I can't agree with that more. I think that really nails it.
Amazing. Well, we are both very in awe, and the entire team is very in awe of the work that you do both at AiLECS and in the wider community. So thank you so much for joining us. I know you're both busy people, but we really appreciated your time, and we're really excited to see how the future of AI rolls out. So thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Ellen. So
Thanks.